And now I would like to invite Tobias Kurter to the stage, and he's going to tell us about some of the awesome features in this release. Tobias?
Hi, thank you, Alison. Thank you, and welcome everybody. Okay, let's start with the first highlight. So that's the modern UI and UX. And I don't want to spend much time on this one. I just want to dive deep into the demo here and just show you how the modern UI looks like. So this is still an extension and in preview, so you need to install that. But once you have it installed, it's very easy to start. So you just go to the button on the top right corner and then click it, and that will bring you to the modern UI, which looks much cleaner and nicer than the existing one. So the UI at the heart, there's basically the workflow editor in the middle, and then you have some information about the workflow on the left-hand side, and you have the node repository, the new one, which with nicer search functionality and so on. So that was all there already with the 4.6 release. And what we added with the 4.7 release, for example, is that now you can have open several workflows in the same workbench. So you have these tabs over here where you can switch between the different workflows that we will use here during the demo. And another thing that has been added is that makes it easier for you to create your workflows. So what you can do is you can track out this connection. And then if you release the mouse, then KNIME will suggest, based on the workflow code or the information that we gather from the community users that are willing to share these anonymous data with us, suggest the top 12 nodes. And in this case, it's pretty easy. What node will be most common after the decision tree learner will be the decision tree predictor. So I can click on that, and that will add the node then. And this works the same when I now take this one. I get the scorer, for example. So I just select it, and then I'm done with the creating my workflow, basically. What's also nice is that Peter's team, for example, also takes care of little details. So what you can do is you can now create a connection also the other way around, which is very nice, and then saves you also a lot of browsing around the desktop here. Another thing that has been added is the dynamic port support. So what does that mean? To show you this, I create first a component here. Okay, and then you will already see that the component has some plus buttons here. So if I click on this plus button, for example, then I can select, I want to add a new output port, and I can select the type, and the topmost ports are selected at the top. So in this case, I can add a table output port here, for example. But instead of clicking on the plus button, you can also simply drag and drop a connection on the plus, which will then create an input or output port here, which is really nice. And this also works with the built-in nodes that have these dynamic input ports, like the concatenate node. So this one also has a plus button, so I just need to track the connection here, and then it automatically adds an input port here, which saves you a lot of time. Another thing that has been improved is the table view. So I can go down here. Whenever I select the table, a node with a table output, I can see the table up here. And now it's more interactive and allows you to better get a feeling of your data quicker. So for example, I can do some filtering here. So if I want to know how many rows in my table have a question mark for work class, for example, then I can simply adjust the filter here, and I see the number of rows that are now left in the data table. I can reset that filter, and I can also filter across the whole table. So if I'm interested in all the rows that are in Germany, that have this native country of residence is Germany, for example, I can simply type in here, and then I see 114 rows match this criteria, for example. And Daniel's team was working on the interactive nodes visualizations. So one of the new visualization is the density plot, for example. And what's nice about the new visualization is that you can adjust the settings and have immediately a view of what is how the settings affect basically the view. So in this case, I have this new density plot, which plots now the age distribution across my whole data table. And I can adjust that and can say, okay, use the condition column marital status, and then you see then for each marital status the different age distributions, which is a bit different than the standard one. And in addition to the density plot, Daniel's team also added some more nodes, which is the pie chart, for example, the stacked area chart, the histogram, and so on. And all of these come with these nice interactions and that allow you to see immediately how the settings basically affect the outcome of the plot.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I mean, it's all really beautiful looking. One thing that I'm curious about is if I start building workflows in this new UI and UX in this new view, will I still be able to edit them in the old view as well? Or yes, okay.
Yeah, you can very easily switch. Yeah, you can switch between these two just with the button basically, and then you can edit in both modes basically, or views. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's really cool that you can go back and forth, but of course, the new view is amazing looking, so I'm looking forward to more features there. But while that has been a huge focus of this release, we also did some other things as well, correct, Tobias?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So the next thing I want to highlight is the improved Python integration. So the Python integration in general allows you to embed Python into your data analysis workflows in KNIME on different stages, basically. So you can start using the Python script nodes, and these allow you to embed scripts directly into your workflow and make these scripts also available to others that know Python and want to tweak around with that one. But then when you want to share these workflows or these nodes basically with your non-Python expert users, you can wrap them into a component and only expose certain configurations to these colleagues then that can visually tweak then these via the node dialog. And then if you want to go even further, you can also have then pure Python nodes, KNIME nodes, that then behave like the standard native nodes in KNIME. And that is then basically the highest level of abstraction that you can use there to share then Python code with your colleagues. Okay, just a quick recap about the new Python integration that we were working on over quite some releases already. So as I said, in general, so this allows you to use Python scripts in KNIME, like R and Java, the other scripting languages that we also support there. And with this new integration, Python is now a first citizen in KNIME, basically. So it doesn't matter also if you execute your Python code outside of KNIME or within KNIME, it's the same performance, basically. And we have added a bundle environment to KNIME. And that means you can start with coding with Python without you taking care of all the dependencies like additional Python packages. So most of the common ones are all integrated into this Python environment, and you can just start coding and share it also with other KNIME users then. And then the last one is the conda environment propagation node. So if this bundle environment doesn't contain the package that you need because you want to reach out and use a very specific Python algorithm or something like this, then you can use the conda environment propagation node in order to bundle that with your KNIME workflow. And when you share them with others or execute it in a year, then you can be sure that this node takes care of selecting the right package and the right version there. And what's cool with this release is this Python integration has now graduated out of labs, and that means now you can use all of this great functionality in production. And in addition to that, we also improved the type support. So now you can work also with other types like date and time and geospatial types, for example. And the team, Carsten's team, basically has also worked a lot on making this Python extension development much easier and nicer so that it's more efficient and easier for you to create your own native KNIME nodes with Python then. And the last one that I want to highlight is this interactive Python view, which allows you to create really interactive visualizations using Python script in KNIME that also talk to other views in KNIME. And I want to show you that in a demo here. Okay, let's go back to KNIME in the modern UI. And now I browse to the Python integration workflow. So this is a rather small workflow with one node and one component. So let's go into the component here. And here you see I use the conda environment propagation node for the dependency management. I have two Python scripts that learn the lasso regression in this case. I have the standard scatter plot that just shows the scatter plot in KNIME. And then I have the new Python view node here. So how does that look like in the view? So if I open that component view, we have now these two views. And the nice thing is, so the new Python, so the map view on the left is basically the Python script view. And this one allows me now to interact with it. I can also select something here on the left-hand side. And then you see that these few, points are now also highlighted in the scatter plot, which is the native KNIME view. So your Python script view can now talk to the native Python, to the native KNIME views, which is really cool. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. So we've just been really working on kind of even further integrating Python into KNIME, right? Really making that transition quite a bit smoother.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to make that as easy as possible for Python users, and also for everybody who is no Java developer but wanted to spend or wanted to write his own Python node. You're very welcome to do that. Just look at our homepage or our documentation, which is very detailed about that, and we are happy to help you there to bring this new Python nodes then on the KNIME Community Hub, so making that available to everybody.
That's really incredible. And I believe I'd like to now invite to the stage Marcus Lauber, who has done a lot of work with Python and KNIME. Marcus, welcome.
Hi, hello. I hope you all can hear me. Great,
yes, we can hear you.
Great to be here. Yes, that's great. Yeah, I would like to take over from here, or you want to do some more introductory speeches? Maybe not necessary. I'm Marcus Lauber. I work with a large German telco company, Deutsche Telekom, and I do a lot of stuff with KNIME. Maybe you know me from the KNIME forum, so you're welcome to sort of connect there. Let's see if I can share my screen. I hope it works. I hope you can see my screen.
Yep.
Not sure if it works. Yes, it works. This is a little KNIME workflow that takes it from where Tobias was standing. This is a component, and it has some interactive elements in it. It builds a nice little graphic. What we have here is a set of data about diamonds and their specifics. For example, how they are cut or how expensive they are and what not. And what we did here is we built sort of a little interactive, dashboard where we can see what's going on with these diamonds. I'll show you in a moment how this is done, but maybe first we explore how this dashboard works. I can give this a title. I can select what I want to explore, what I want to explore on the x-axis, a string variable. Then I can explore what I want to see. Maybe the price of a diamond is always an interesting thing. And I then change this here to price. And I see the price of the diamond. And this is the cut of the diamond. And I want to select a color for my little graphic, which is a box plot here, which is a nice way. It's a variation of box plots where you can sort of see large numbers in groups. And then if I press the execute button, hopefully this whole thing will execute, and it will give me my prices of all my diamonds grouped by their cut. And will do this in my little interactive dashboard, but also will allow me to download the PNG file, and so I can have this file later on for my presentation or other stuff. This is quite nice, and I would like to show you sort of how this is done in the background, because this is what is quite new about the latest release of KNIME, or some of the latest releases of KNIME, is that is within this little component here, we have a Python script, and this little Python script does sort of all the graphic work, so that I can now access a lot of graphic libraries from Python. And the interesting thing is a lot of people who do graphics with Python, of course, know about Seaborn and Matplotlib, and they are now part of the bundled KNIME environment. So you do not need to install any Conda stuff or any other Python stuff. You just need to install the extension, and then you have the full power of these Python nodes and these Python packages with you. You just select the preferences, the bundled KNIME version, and then you have it. And maybe first of all, this code might look a little bit scary for people who are not that familiar with Python programming, but I can assure you, often for these graphics, it is just this little part here, which I copied from the Seaborn, the official Seaborn example library, and the rest is mostly just KNIME flow variables coming in from my configurations. So I have this sort of graphic part. I have the part where I set these flow variables, and then I have the output part where I just give the image back to KNIME and handle it from there. So maybe it might look like a little bit scary first, but I can assure you it's maybe not extremely simple, but it's quite simple to build such interactive dashboards with the help of KNIME and Python. And yeah, you will find a lot of examples also on the KNIME Hub. I'll share you a link with you in a moment. Just to wrap this up, you use this little widgets that give you the configurations, and then important is this little refresh button. This is the little execute, the yellow execute button that you saw, and then you can sort of take the values you have changed and put them into the component, and the whole thing will run with your new color or your new settings that you would like to have. And just to give you a small glimpse, if you have all this together in your KNIME component with your typical KNIME nodes, then you can go up here and configure the layout. And as you can see, also might look a little bit scary at the first moment, but then you see, okay, I can just drag and drop them here, and I can construct my little dashboard and have the functions ready, and then I can, have a little dashboard that in this case also not only shows the image, but also writes the image to a temporary folder, and then I can later download it and use it somewhere else. That's basically it. What you can do with the bundled Python version with graphics. Question is are there any specific questions right here, or maybe I should show you a few other things? I'm not sure how you would like to handle that. Do you have any immediate questions in the chat, or maybe I should show you a few other things?
Yeah, I would continue, and then we collect the question and answer for the end, basically.
Oh yeah. And
Nice.
the next thing I would just maybe quickly highlight is that what has especially changed with the latest version, create a confusion here, is that now you have the OpenPyXL library directly within the bundled Python version. Some of you, a lot of people work extensively with Excel, and a lot of you might know the Continental Excel nodes that would help you structure and format your Excel files. But if you want to take it up a notch and have very special functions ready, then you can rely on the OpenPyXL library, and that this is now sort of integrated within the KNIME Python bundled version, and then you can do stuff like create these little drop-down menus. You can define table areas and stuff like that. Before that you could only do by setting up a special conda environment, but now it's just right integrated within the bundled version, so you can do stuff like that. Other thing you could do all sorts of formattings. Of course, you can also use the Continental nodes, but sometimes you have, I don't know, you want to have very special formattings, and you can also do that with OpenPyXL. And again, sometimes at first the code might look a little bit scary, but there are a lot of examples on the KNIME Hub. If you just type in OpenPyXL, and I'll share a link with you in a moment, and so you can explore a few examples. And other than that, of course, you can always just ask Google or maybe ChatGPT and ask these tools. Yeah, why not? I have done a few things with ChatGPT and just asked it to write a little Python block, and then afterwards integrated it into KNIME, and it works just fine. Maybe if you spend months and months exploring this stuff, maybe your code gets even better, but for some quick tasks, this is perfectly fine, and you can always take it from there and add more functions and routines. So I can really recommend that you should do this. Yeah, this is another example when you have named named table areas. You can explore them. Maybe not go into too much details, just to give you a hint. Open PyXL on the KNIME Hub, you will find a lot of additional examples where you can use these newly integrated Python package. This would be just some short glimpses from my side, and if you have any further questions, I'm happy to ask them. You can ask them here, or maybe ask them in the KNIME forum, and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Markus. That was really nice.
Yes, thank you, Marcus. That was really cool to see. I mean, I'm glad there are Python experts like you who can make those little Python script nodes, and then I can just use them.
Yeah, but you can also become a sort of a Python expert just by, I don't know, you set out Googling this stuff, you find examples, on the web, and recently I started exploring ChatGPT and asked it for little Python snippets, sort of, and then integrated them into KNIME, and you have the full power of KNIME, the workflows, and you have the special function in your bundled environment. This is very, very comfortable and helps you solve a lot more problems than you will be able to solve before.
That's really cool that you can just copy and paste it in, and it kind of just runs in your workflow.
Yes. Yeah, then use a little flow variables, and then you have an automated setting, and everybody's happy and sees interesting Python code that you just copied from ChatGPT, but you will tell no one.
We don't tell anyone. We keep that an inside secret.
You won't.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now, Tobias, there's still more with Python, though, right? We've got actually entire extensions and nodes being made completely in Python and then run in KNIME, correct?
Yes, of course. And that brings us to the last highlight of the release webinar, and that's the Geospatial Analytics extension. So geospatial is becoming more and more important to a lot of also non-geospatial experts, and they want to use geospatial data that is now also available mostly publicly, and want to enhance the in-house data with these geospatial information. And there are a lot of different use cases, and some of these are, for example, you have a supply chain that you want to optimize, for example, or analyze, or in healthcare, you have things like vaccine distribution, or also hospital area coverage, or these kind of things. You can also do geospatial marketing or social media analysis, where you incorporate then also geospatial information where the tweets are located, for example. There's also real estate market, of course, where it's very important to see where a house or something like this is located basically on a map, what is close by, is there a motorway or something like this, right? And then one also very hot topic is trade area or site selection, which I will also show in the demo later on. And all of these use cases you can basically now also do with the KNIME, with the new Geospatial Analytics extension. And as you already mentioned, so the extension is built with this new Python integration framework. So they are native nodes, but the nodes themselves, they are developed with Python. And but that doesn't need to scare you at all. It's just an extension like any other extension. So you just drag and drop the node from the KNIME Hub, and then KNIME takes care in the background to install all of the dependencies and everything. And then you can just get started like with any Java built KNIME node, basically. The extension itself, it supports most of the common vector data types, such as points, so like your address, for example, or polygons or lines like streets and so on. And this whole extension was developed together with our colleagues from Harvard, because they bring in these geospatial expertise here and join our forces here, so that we, with the KNIME development, can take care of the development, and they can take care of the geospatial background, basically. And this was released as a community extension, also with the intent that We will work together with the Harvard guys, but also, of course, with the community in order to improve that and make it much more usable with every release, basically. And that's where you come in then also. So we would like to have your feedback. So that is highly appreciated, either via the KNIME forum or via the GitHub page where this extension is hosted, basically. So this is the first version of the Geospatial Analytics extension, but it already covers the whole life cycle of geospatial analysis. We have IO nodes that allow you to read in all the standard geospatial types like GeoJSON or shapefiles, for example. We have an open dataset category that will grow over the time. So for now, we have already integrated OpenStreetMap, which is a great source for a lot of information, like points of interest or which restaurants are nearby, roads, and so on and so forth. And we also integrated the US Census data, so that allows you to integrate that into your analysis very easily, for example, in the site selection, which we will see in a second then. And then, of course, we support converting between the new efficient geospatial type in KNIME and all the other standard types like well-known text, well-known binary, and so on. We also have a lot of calculation, manipulation, and transformation nodes. So they allow you to work with these geospatial shapes, like computing the area, for example, computing distances, and also changing between different projections, which is very important in geospatial analysis. Thanks to the collaboration, we have also a lot of rich and sophisticated models here that allow you, for example, to easier perform site selection and other geospatial use cases, for example. And finally, we have a lot of visualization nodes that combine, or on the one hand, where you can have then really stunning interactive visualizations, like on the top right corner, which you can integrate into your KNIME data app. So if you execute the workflow on the KNIME Hub or KNIME server, then also non-KNIME users basically can use these or see these visualizations in their browser, for example. But on the other hand, you can also create nice static views like this Chloroplast map. Oh, that's a really strange or difficult name. But you can create these also in KNIME now and then integrate into your reports then, basically. Yeah, but we don't stop with the nodes. We also provide you with a lot of use cases, which you can find in the Geospatial Analytics example space on the KNIME Community Hub. And we will continue to add more and more use cases there over time. So visit this space more often then. Okay, and with that, let me give you also a quick demo of the Geospatial extension in the modern UI. Okay, so this workflow is performing a site selection. So we try to open a new restaurant in New York City, basically. We have 5 different locations available, which we could purchase basically in different areas in New York. So the first thing what we do is we compute these, and then we compute a distance like 500 meters or 1 kilometer around these locations. And then we want to identify how many people live in this area, how many other restaurants are there, and all these kind of information that are very handy to know, okay, does it make sense to open their restaurant? No, there are too many others, and these things, right? To get this information, we use this US Census data also. So we have these 2 nodes. So this node provides us with a lot of information on different levels of abstraction in the United States, like how many people live in a certain area, how old they are, and so on. And then this US Tiger map provides us with what is the size, or how does the borough or area in New York looks like, or the different ones. So we combine this so that we have then these shapes together with the properties, like how many people live there and so on. We combine this with information from the OpenStreetMap, which we get in here. And then in the end, we have a nice visual data app. So let me open that one. And there we have a score that we can compute based on these different information, like a percentage of unemployment, students, active population, and so on. And I can give each of these properties now a different weight. So for now, I put all of my weight onto the active population. So if I would be interested, okay, which area is the most interesting one in terms of people living there, then I would choose, for example, here next to the Central Park or a bit north of the Penn Station, for example. I would rather choose these spots than the other ones. But for example, if I then say, okay, I'm I'm only interested in students, for example, because I have a pizza chain and students tend to eat more pizza than other people, then I can change the weight of the score, for example, let KNIME re-execute the computation of the score and the other things. And then once it's computed, then you will see that the site will change, which I most likely want to pick. So in this case, so we had the next to Central Park and Penn Station. And now if I execute that and it refreshes the image, voila. Then I see, for example, now Manhattan is, the lower Manhattan is much more interested and so on. But yeah, you can imagine then there you can add whatever you want for information and add this and let this then other people use and adjust the score to their likings, basically.
Wow, that's just incredibly powerful, and it's really cool to see all the different interactions that we can do now with geospatial data.
Yep.
But if I want to install this extension and use it in my workflows, is there anything special I need to do because it's Python?
No. As I mentioned, don't worry about it. KNIME takes care of that. So it's just installed like any other extension, and you can just get started there.
So I can just get started and start analyzing all kinds of geospatial data.
Yeah, exactly. And then
That's
you have
really
some
cool.
blueprints to help you to get started there also. Yeah.
Yep, and the blueprints are on the KNIME Hub.
Yep, exactly. In the geospatial space. Yeah.
Perfect. And now I know we can't go into all of the highlights and everything we did in this release, but there is still more that we did. Where could I find more about that? The things we can't cover now.
Yeah, so there's this what's new page, which we always create, and just visit that page, not space, that page, and then you will find out about all the new nodes that we added, like the DB row manipulator node or the new container input-output nodes that allow you to input and output raw HTTP, making this called workflow nodes or your workflows much more versatile, for example. So just visit that page, and then you will see what's new there.
Wonderful. That's really cool. I'll have to make sure to check it out. But now I want to thank you, Tobias, for all of that. It was really cool to see all those highlights. And we're now going to enter the QA portion of this webinar. So I'd like to call back to the stage Marcus Lauber. And I'd also like to invite to the stage for the first time, Karsten Haubold, who is a fellow software developer here at KNIME. Welcome, you two.
Hi there.
All right. So we're going to get right into the QA. Look at some of the questions we have here. So first and foremost, we have, how do I access the modern UI? I don't have anything to click at the top right corner.
Yeah, there's an extension that you still need to install, which is called Modern UI Preview, if I'm not mistaken. And once you have that installed, then you should see the button at the top right corner.
Okay, so that's just an extension. I go into kind of the normal KNIME flow, go to the update site, install the extension,
Yep.
restart KNIME, and I should see that button.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Very cool. And then there's another question for modern UI, and they're asking, is there an option to still see the nodes in the tree view layout like in the old UI, or can I only really see it in this paginated form you showed?
Yeah, right now that's only, you can't see it in a tree view, but you have a much nicer search, and that's why we think that this new view is much better than the tree view. It also allows us or you then to see exactly how the nodes look like also in the UI. So you see how many input ports, what kind of input ports this have. And if you put that all in the tree, that would be a pretty busy, large tree, I guess. So, yeah.
Okay. But for these types of questions too, if we wanted to give more feedback on because we really need the tree view, we can give feedback on the forum and let people know kind of what we need and why.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Feel free to add in the forum, and then if we also think it makes sense, then we also add it, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so there's still a little bit of flexibility with the modern UI. You know, if there's something really missing, people can come to us and say, "Hey, I need this feature."
Yeah, that's always possible, of course. Yeah.
Okay, and for that, they can just come to the forum and they'll let us know.
Yep.
Very cool. And then the next question is a little bit more involved. It's a question of, how do I build an interactive dashboard for the end user, e.g. an executive or so? The input would be a KNIME workflow, and the output is then a dashboard for business users. how can we do that?
I mean, Markus had a really, really nice example of an interactive dashboard, I would say. And if you want to
Yes.
make that available to other people, then just deploy it on the KNIME Hub or KNIME server, and then they can access that dashboard via any standard browser, basically. So you can point them to the URL and also with pre-signed URL so that they don't need to log in, or you can embed that into your web page, basically, and then you have your interactive data app.
Okay, so then those data apps kind of work then if I'm a end user who has no idea KNIME's happening in the background. I can just go straight to this URL and bam, there's a dashboard.
Yep, exactly.
Yes. But you could also use it within the app itself. So
Yeah.
of course, then it's not that comfortable. So I would recommend using the KNIME Business Hub, but still it's possible to do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
so
you
even if
could-
I don't have a hub, I could say you have to download KNIME, but then you can use the dashboard and it's really just a button click or so.
Yeah. Yeah, then they need to execute the workflow like Markus did and then open the view and then they have the interactive dashboard basically. Yeah.
Okay, so you got some options there.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, if anyone wants to know more about data apps, just a little bit of a plug here. There is going to be an additional webinar on that on February 28th. So if people have more questions, make sure to check out that webinar. And then I'll move on to the next question, which is, will there be a Julia integration in the future? Karsten, you're smiling.
I guess that's a question
Yeah.
for me. So we haven't really looked into extension for Julia yet, but it looks interesting. So if there is a big demand, then as Alison said before, you can steer our path of development by showing us that you want.
Yep, if there's a high enough demand, ask on the
Exactly.
forum, and if you all shout loud enough.
Exactly. Right
And
now,
also
I mean, the
it's,
focus was much more
yeah.
on Python, and we do have an R integration and Java snippets, but yeah, we haven't looked into Julia yet.
And if you put that in the forum, also put some use cases why Julia is more important than Python or why it helps you more so that we better understand then what's the need behind that basically.
Exactly. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely, that always helps us because then we can also kind of make sure we tailor that to the use cases that you give us.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's always a huge thing for the forum if you give us feedback. And then another question around Python. They're asking, Python is much faster now in version 4.7 than it was in 4.6. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, it always sounded like Python is slow, but Python itself was never the culprit. The communication between KNIME and Python was what was slower in previous KNIME versions, and we have made that a lot faster, yes. So in 4.7, in KNIME 4.7, the Python script node is much faster, and also all the pure Python nodes that Tobias advertised before, they're also using this fast communication. And if you're still using KNIME 4.6, you can get the performance advancements by using the Python labs nodes. At that point, they were still in labs, they were already available, but now they're the default Python script node.
Okay, so it is faster, but there were some lab versions that were also faster previously.
Yeah.
Very cool. And the next question is then, can you do maps with Python?
Okay, so I think depending on what you want to develop with Python, you can do pretty much anything. But I guess as Python has such a huge ecosystem of different libraries that you can use, I'm pretty sure you can find something out there that uses maps. For instance, all those things that Tobias was showing. The Geospatial Extension is written in Python. So all those visualizations, all those overlays and plots that were using maps, that was all using Python. And if the Geospatial Extension was not enough for the things you're trying to do, you could actually build on top of that by writing Python scripts or your own Python nodes that also work with geospatial data.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that you always can do from within the Python node, you can write directly to the disk. Of course, KNIME has this output ports where you can then work with the data or the images further down the line. But if you have a very special format that you would use outside of KNIME, you can just sort of tell Python to write it to the disk, and then you have it. Sometimes people wonder, oh, I am now stuck within this Python node, I can't get it out. But you can always pickle it, obviously. You can sort of compress it and store it. But you can also just tell it to write it to the disk, and then you have it there and can use it later on. So this is always a possibility for advanced users.
Yeah, good point.
So with enough work, you can pretty much do anything. The world is yours.
Yes.
It is.
You just got to Google or go to ChatGPT.
Yeah, why not? I mean, sorry. This is the really great thing about KNIME. It's not limit. I mean, it is thousands of great functions, which is really great. But if you want to take it up a notch, you always can. This is the point. And why not? Why not just write it to the disk and use it somewhere later, or do a list search and use a flow variable, send it somewhere? Why not? Why not?
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, sky's the limit. You can have as much fun with KNIME as you want.
Exactly.
All right, so for the next question, it's wondering, what happens to libraries which already have nodes, like RDKit? Will they conflict when I have nodes from Python type nodes, or other nodes from KNIME? So I think they're wondering about dependencies within
So
different libraries.
in general, no. You can mix and match the native KNIME nodes written in Java that we had before and still have with the Python nodes, because they interact by sending the data table. Usually, as you know, in KNIME, all the data is stored in tables. It's just the table going back and forth between KNIME and Python. And for most data types, we actually support them on the Python side as well, not only the geospatial data that we saw today, but for RDKit, which is a chem informatics library representing molecules and fingerprints and so on. We actually have support for that on the Python side as well. We already had that before, but we have a faster integration now with the latest Python integration. And you can use those data types on both sides, in the KNIME world, in the Python world. So they work together.
Okay, so you can mix and match as much as you like, and
yes,
everything's kind of well contained to
Yep.
go to the next step. Okay, there is now a question. Is the Keras node already compatible with the new Python integration?
Well, the Keras node. Well, the Keras nodes that we have are built on the previous Python integration. So no, they are not using the same backend underneath, meaning data transfer is still slower for the Keras nodes. Yeah, I guess that's what I hope that was the point of the question, whether the data transfer will be faster.
Yeah, but for the Keras nodes, if I wanted to use the Keras nodes with the new Python nodes, they'd still mix and match.
You can definitely mix and match, because the table sending back and forth always works with the old and the new Python integration. But,
okay, but the Keras
you
nodes
won't benefit from the performance improvements.
Okay, so they're
in
just
the
a little
Keras nodes
slower
right
still.
now. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Next question. Are there any plans for creating a course for geospatial extension?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, actually, we are working together with the Harvard people to create an online course. So the idea right now is to have a self-paced e-learning course there. So stay tuned. And I mean, we work together with them to create a lot of other new materials there, like these blueprints and so on. So yeah, there's definitely, we plan to have more learning material and so on out there for geospatial, making that easier for you to get started. Yeah.
Very cool. Just be on the lookout.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty fresh, so there will be more stuff. And actually, we are right now working on a new version or on the next version of the Geospatial Extension or an update, which will contain already some new nodes that have been asked a lot by the community, like geocoding and so on, and that will be released also pretty soon. So let's stay tuned.
Very cool. Another question around the geospatial. So first I say I took a look at the new geospatial functions and I am very happy about them. So
Cool, that's
good on that side.
great feedback.
But right now I am missing some function to write out some of the geospatial data to different databases like Oracle, MariaDB, Postgres.
Yeah. Okay,
And
yeah.
then-
Yeah, that's something, yeah. So that's why we have this new DB manipulation node. So this one allows you to do that. And we are working right now on creating some blueprints for that. So that will hopefully show you how you can do that. So we tried that with Snowflake already and Postgres, for example. But once we have these blueprints, you could adapt them also to Oracle and so on, because they usually all use the same. There's anyway a standard for that, basically. And once we have these blueprints in a really nice way to publish them, then we will make them available. So stay tuned, look at the example space, basically. And there you will find the answer there. But it's possible, pretty easy once you see how it's done, basically.
Okay, I mean, they're also wondering the reverse, to read geospatial
Yeah,
data
of
out
course.
of the database.
Yeah, the example will show you both writing and reading
Okay.
from these geospatial databases. Yeah, that works.
So you just got to watch that space.
Yeah, just
for new,
refresh every 5 minutes. So
just keep
bear with
refreshing.
us a little longer. Yeah.
Very cool. Glad that's on the horizon.
Yeah, definitely.
And then another question, also on geospatial. People love geospatial. Does the geospatial extension only include US Census and map data, or does it include UK data?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for now, we have integrated only the US Census. I mean, you can get map data for the UK also with the OpenStreetMap. So the OpenStreetMap is worldwide. So you get restaurants and streets and all of these information you get from the whole world, basically. But that's what I meant. So we will continue to add more and more of these nodes to this open data category, because that's very important to get different shapefiles for different countries and so on. But what we do now, or what you can already do now, and what we did also in some of the blueprints, is there is a lot of these data is available pretty easy, where you can just add the URL to the geospatial file reader, for example, to get the shapefiles from the UK or something like this, basically. So that works already now, but as I said, we will add more nodes to this open data category. And if you have some good sources that you can recommend to us, please add that to the forum, because we are looking for these really, really cool sites that are worth integrating, basically, in KNIME. So, and the US Census was just the easiest, so that we get started with that one. But we are looking for Europe and other areas also, that we have something equivalent there.
Okay, so it's coming, and please let us know if you have any cool data sources.
Yeah, definitely. Looking for that.
Yep. Another question, will it be possible to read out spatial data to ESRI GDBs?
Yeah, I think we had that on the forum also. I need to double check, but I think the library that we have that supports that, but I need to double check. So yeah, we need to get back to you on the forum there. I can't give a definite answer there. I think reading we can do, but not out of the box. I think that's something that we need to add then. And writing, I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Then next question is, the KNIME Labs visualization nodes are really nice, but I am missing the flow variables.
But you can use flow variables in them. It's just a bit hidden in the new modern UI, basically.
Okay.
I mean, does it make sense to show it briefly or not? Maybe that's too long, right? But you can use that via the context menu.
Okay, so just go to the context menu, and then there's configure flow variables.
Yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just click on the node and then configure flow variables, and then it will open up the tab that you know from the old UI, basically. Yeah.
Perfect. And then a general question, can I simply update my KNIME from 4.6 to 4.7, or do I have to take care of anything?
I think you can simply update. We didn't change the Java version or anything. I mean, so once in a while we have to update some of the real basics of KNIME, basically, which then require a complete restart or something like this. But I think this time there hasn't been anything special, right, Carsten? It's just
Yeah, I think so too. Updates should
just
work.
standard update like always. Yeah.
Okay, so just a straightforward update.
Yep.
And then another question, for a Python extension, is it possible to create a flow variable output port?
Flow variable output port. So no, we can't have dedicated flow variable ports in Python yet. What we can do is, well, you can always modify the flow variables that the node outputs through, well, you can edit the flow variables inside the Python script, and then in the output, basically you can use those flow variables, but you can't in a Python node extension say, I want this node to have a dedicated flow variable output port, so you have the red bubble as output port. That's not possible yet. If there's high demand for that, we can add that, but right now it's not the case.
Yeah, but you can always sort of activate the flow variables and then use the flow variables you have created within the Python script. So you do not have a dedicated output port, but you can just use them. So
exactly. Thanks, Marco. So if for those who don't know, if you hover with your mouse over, or well, you can right click and show hidden flow variable ports on each node, and then you have those available anyways. But sometimes if you don't know that they are there, dedicated port.
And
I
flow
think
variables are also carried over with the data connection, for example. So as long as you have a connection between two nodes, then the flow variables are piggybacked basically on this connection.
And I think one thing to keep in mind, you can basically pickle everything from within a Python node. I know there are some security issues and so on, but you can basically pickle everything from within a Python node and just store it as a zip file or as a JSON file or as a pickle file, and then carry it over to some other Python node or some other Python environment. So this is maybe not very elegant, but you can always do that.
Yeah, if the consumer is still a Python site, because you need to unpickle it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Very cool. And I guess we're going to go for the last question now, because we're running out a little bit of time. So last question is, instead of building dashboards in KNIME, could I build dashboards that output to Microsoft Teams or SharePoint Online?
We have nodes for these, right? I mean, not for SharePoint Online, but for Power BI, for example, and Tableau or TIBCO, Spotfire. For example, you have dedicated nodes so that you can output the data there and then use these tools as a dashboarding tool, basically. So you can do that. And I mean, with SharePoint, we also have an integration, but I don't know SharePoint dashboard. But yeah, if that's any data file, if that dashboarding tool reads it from a SharePoint drive or something like this, then we can export the data there also.
Okay, very cool. I was told we have actually sneaky, a little bit of extra time for one more question. So it's time for real. Last question.
Okay.
Would it be possible to write a simple data capture app inside the Python script node that would, for instance, do data capture on a form and then push the output to KNIME for further processing of the data?
So I assume that means in a Python script or a pure Python node, somebody wants to show like a dialog that is not part of the KNIME configuration dialogues or so on, but a dialog with input fields where they can query the user for some input. That would, in theory, work, I guess, but not as a data app. So you can't write, I mean, Python has there are some toolkits that do that in Python. I'm thinking of Streamlit, for instance, at the moment. you cannot use those directly in a Python node and take the widgets from this library, whatever library you use, and integrate them in a KNIME data app at the moment. The only way you can, if you wanted to do that, you can only do that. So it has to open up a new window while you're executing your Python script. But that kind of, I wouldn't say that's not. I would say that's not the recommended way to to do that in KNIME.
But I mean, what you can do is, if you have KNIME Hub or KNIME Server, then you can run a workflow there, and with this configuration input nodes, then you can also create forms and then store the data somewhere within KNIME. So that's what we also do. So you can create the input forms using the native KNIME nodes basically and store that somewhere.
Yeah, all the things that Markus was showing, these data apps or these. You can build this and then feed the data into Python and do something there. That's exactly what Markus was doing. So if that was
okay, so that's more the recommended way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very cool. Well, I want to thank all of you, Tobias, Karsten, Markus, for coming here and presenting some of the new release stuff and also helping me answer all these questions. It was wonderful having all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and I also want to thank everyone watching for attending this webinar and for giving us such wonderful questions. And just as a heads up, it did come up in the Q&A. This session is being recorded and it will be available later. So that will probably be emailed to you at some point after the stream is over. And now, if you have any more questions or you want to get in touch with us because something wasn't answered or what have you, you can, of course, go to the hub. Or you can go to the KNIME forum is a great place to ask questions. We're on a bunch of different social media platforms. In this app now, there's a contact us. So lots of way to get in touch with us. And we definitely hope to hear from you soon. And I wish all of you a pleasant rest of your day. Bye.